Leigh and Aaron, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you both here today.
Our
Thank
pleasure to
you,
be
Lee.
here.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Lee.
I was just saying it's sometimes tricky doing these three-way conversations because everyone's got something to say, but we'll navigate as best we can, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll work it out pretty good.
You guys must be pretty used to it. So I've got you on here today because your podcast, right? Physics to God,
Yep.
launched early 23. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
How's it tracking? How's it going?
It's been going great. We did the first season in 2023, released about it was like 10 episodes.
Hmm.
And that was really trying to show the idea of how fine-tuning of constants of nature point to an intelligent cause. It took us another year, a year and a half to really begin season two about the multiverse, analyzing the multiverse and showing why it's not really a good scientific theory. We just started releasing that in the end of November of 2024. So we work kind of slowly, but it's because, we have to we try to like break down the ideas and develop them and present them as clearly as possible. And it's not like they're subtle ideas. So it takes us time, but it's been going great. We've been very happy with the response we've gotten from people. They really like the fact that even that we've made physics accessible to people who don't have a scientific background.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so someone like myself who I like physics, but my knowledge level is very basic, right? So to
Perfect
be
for
able to
you. Perfect for
to
you,
be
Lee.
able to communicate that in a way that makes sense is it's got to be hard to do, number one, but really appreciated when people do that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Ellie's the one. Go ahead, Ellie. You tell them about your little analogies. The
Okay. Yeah. So basically, we have like, I guess we're a good tag team. Is Aaron's more the physics guy, and he's like I guess a high level thinker, and he likes to explain things really complicated. I'm sorry, it's not really, but he often explains things, and it's like he wants to be rigorous. See, this is part of the thing. We're trying to show that modern physics gives an argument for God, for the existence of God. So you can't just be soft. You got to be rigorous and solid, and we think it's a solid, logical, compelling argument for God. So Aaron says it as it is, and he explains the physics without really watering it down. Tries to be clear, but sometimes it's hard. So my job, I'm a math professor in a community college in New
Yeah.
York, and my job is that most of my students are afraid of math, and they've tried to learn math many, many times, and they just don't
Mm.
get it. So I have experience in trying to take complicated ideas, breaking them down, explaining them simply, and helping getting into the mind of the student or the listener, as you will. So basically, we have this back and forth where we're explaining the physics, and then I'll explain it, and I'll give analogies, and I'll help try to explain it, break it down, simplify, that type of thing. And so we try to make this the same time we try to help our listeners learn about physics, learn about God, see how physics actually leads to God, but at the same time to have a good time and it's like we try to make it entertaining and interactive, if you will.
The perfect balance then, by the sounds of it. So what led you to the creation? Obviously, your background's involved here, but what led you to the creation of the podcast Physics to God?
it started out like it's really goes back a long time, more than 12 years ago, really about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I came across this book by Leigh, which talked about these little quantities of nature, the constants, and how they have these specific values that allow for atoms and molecules and stars and life to exist. And he was an atheist scientist, and he was just saying like, there's no real great way to explain this. He had his own theory about universes being born in black holes, and I don't know, it was just fascinating. 'Cause I showed Ellie, I'm like, this is incredible. Like he's talking about black holes and stuff, but like if you look at this on its face, it points right to God. And but okay, and then what are you going to do with that? I gave a class to somebody and a few people, but there's not much. How are you going to convince people? We're two rabbis. You're going to go convince people that science points to God. Who's going to believe that exactly?
Yeah, it's very
And
controversial.
then yeah, and it's just like, there is this just general sense in the world that like science shows God doesn't exist. It's like, certainly in the academic secular world, there's just,
Yeah.
any rational person knows that science has shown that God doesn't exist. So it's just, you're fighting an uphill battle. How do you convince anybody that that's not
Mm.
true? Very difficult. But
Yeah.
I came across a book by Martinuzzi called Just Six Numbers, which talks about, these fine-tune certain numbers in the universe that have to be exactly the right numbers, all the same idea. And then in the last chapter, he gives an explanation, which is essentially a multiverse, that there's this infinite number of parallel universes that nobody's ever seen. And these numbers are different in every single universe. And in almost all the universes, there's no stars or planets or life or anything like that. And only in a very small subset of these universes is there intelligent life. And of course, we happen to be in the universe which has intelligent life because we couldn't exist in any other one. But it's just this idea of a multiverse, and it was just wild. And I spoke to Ellie and just like, this is crazy. Scientists are saying a multiverse, and you think it's just such a shocking thing to hear the smartest people in the world who are so attached to empirical observation and experimentation to start saying that there's this scientific theory about infinite number of parallel universes. That I start to realize. That's what came to Ellie, and so Ellie, go ahead, tell from that point there.
Yeah, so then basically we decided that this is something we could show people. Like we can't just go with physics. So people aren't going to believe us. But when we say, listen, there's this thing called fine tuning. These numbers are just right. And the only way to explain how these numbers are just perfect is either God or scientists who don't want to say that. They're positing a multiverse, infinitely many universes. We realize this is something which we could show people. There's something real here because that's the only other option. And if scientists are willing to say something as wild as that, there must be something. So we decided to try to teach these ideas, and we started writing a blog. This was back in the days where blogs were popular. And we wrote a blog from it. We had a nice following of people and discussions and back and forth, and we had some atheists on it, and it was very interesting and fun. And then we decided to write a book, take that blog and make it more rigorous and make a book.
Yep.
But the problem is the book was so dense, like Aaron had his way, if you will, and the ideas became so hard. And we just we just realized we could write a book and publish it, but no one's ever going to read it. So then we just had this idea. Someone suggested, why do you guys make a podcast? And podcasts are more fun, more interactive. We're teachers by nature. We're rabbis. We teach. I'm a professor. We both teach Talmud and in our yeshiva, and so we have experience teaching. So we thought it's a good forum for us to be able to try to teach, explain, go back and forth, and we have these different styles. So we thought it would make for a nice podcast. We decided to, hey, give it a try and try to take these ideas, break them down, simplify them, explain them, use analogies, and
Perfect.
That's where we're at.
And here you are. Interesting topic. Let's delve into both sides of the argument. Like physics is proven, right? We use science to prove how things are in the world.
Yep.
Would we say that on the other side, it's this idea of God created things and we can't prove how that actually works? And you guys are trying to connect the dots between the two?
I would say it's like an interesting thing. If you take a step back, you view it in an abstract sense.
Yeah.
It really comes down to this question of, is the category of purpose a legitimate way of thinking about the objective universe? So one of the major things that happened in modern science a few hundred years ago is that scientists got rid of the idea of teleological causes. So meaning causes where, like, for example, Aristotelian science would explain why a seed becomes a tree. It's because like the purpose of becoming a tree is, in a sense, the goal of a tree is what motivates not the right word, is what guides the seed to develop and to grow. And science wants to show that, no, you don't need to use purpose. You could just explain everything by blind, unintelligent, efficient causes. So one thing, A causes B, B causes C.
Right.
And that's had a lot of consequences on beyond science. It's been incredibly successful for hundreds of years. And it's had a lot of consequences on modern society because, in a sense, you've removed purpose from being objective in the world. And people have tried to find a place to find meaning and purpose in the world. And it's become like created by humans. It's a construct. It's entirely subjective. And it's led to a lot of the psychological malaise that's infected modern society, of people feeling, what's the purpose of their life? Is it just something, is the world really absurd and we just have to make up meaning and purpose? And what's interesting is with this argument is it's, of course, we're not saying that there's, the purpose that what causes the seed to become a plant. You're not going back to Aristotle. what's amazing is that when you analyze the laws of physics themselves, not a seed or an animal, but you just analyze the gravity and you analyze quantum mechanics and the constants, the quantities of these laws, the only real way to explain them, other than a multiverse, is to say that they are the specific numbers they are for the purpose of creating a universe with complexity, order, and structure. And that introduces the idea of purpose in an objective framework for explaining the laws of nature. And that's really a massive change. And it has the potential to really shift people's and society and people's attitude towards the world around us, and feeling that there is an objective basis for believing that there is a purpose to the laws of nature. Now, it might not be the purpose, might not be human life, to say that intelligent life is the purpose of the entire universe, but to say that there is purpose for creating a universe with complexity, order, and structure, atoms, molecules, black holes, galaxies, everything, that's a massive change. And that's really what the whole argument with scientists revolves around. Are you going to explain things with blind, unintelligent causes and believe in a multiverse? Or are you going to say that there is an idea of an intelligent cause which acts with a purpose and set the laws of nature for the purpose of bringing about our amazing universe?
Interesting. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, Ellie, your job.
So, I mean, looking at that, I'm just like, whoa, okay, that's gone deep. So there's this idea that science can prove how things are as they are. Yet you're saying
Yeah.
that there is an underlying purpose behind everything, which is more I guess I'm thinking spiritual nature of life.
Well, that's right. That's the thing. It's been said, like, for example, that purpose is spiritual, but that's not what's going on here. That's what, like,
Right.
Nothing in our podcast is spiritual, religious. It's at all. It's entirely rational philosophy, scientific method. And if you analyze this thing, that's what we do, in a logical, rational way, without all secular categories, you end up saying that the best and only real explanation for the constants of nature, the fine tuning of them, and the design of the laws and the order of the initial conditions of the universe is that there's an intelligent cause which set them for a purpose. And if you are unwilling to accept an intelligent cause, you end up believing in, and these are the smartest people in the world, are believing an infinite number of unobservable universes where everything possible happens. And it leads to a tremendous amount of problems for them. And it doesn't really work out with the multiverse. And that's not spirituality. There's nothing about the argument which relies on faith or leaps of faith and blind and spirituality. It's entirely rational categories.
Isn't
Yeah, I'm sorry.
you go.
Yeah, so let me try to simplify or explain a little bit of the details here. So basically, scientists are trying to explain everything that we see. We see all these diverse things, phenomenon in the world, and we try to explain them. And the way it works is scientists try to formulate laws which govern our universe, and they try to prove that these laws are true. And then they try to simplify those laws and choose to say laws of biology, and then those biology is based on laws of chemistry, and then chemistry is based on laws of physics. And the goal of science is to get down to the core principles which govern everything. And when science has got down to the core, you've got these basic laws of nature, which are called quantum mechanics and general relativity. These are the laws, but these laws have numbers in them. And these numbers, there's like the mass of an electron, or there's these numbers which are another thing which talks about how strong electromagnetic force is. There's a number like 1 over 137.035999. And there's like 25 of these crazy numbers, 0.0000000, 120 zeros and a 3. And these numbers are baked into the very fabric of our universe. And scientists were trying to understand, how do you explain these numbers? What's the basis? Are they just random, arbitrary numbers? They could have been anything. And science over the last few decades has discovered, culminated really in 1998, that these numbers are fine-tuned. If the numbers were any different, although physics says they could have been any number, we measure that they happen to be these numbers. But if these numbers were any different, then all you would have in our universe is a bunch of fundamental particles banging around, interacting with one another. You wouldn't have any atoms, you wouldn't have any molecules, you wouldn't have any stars, you wouldn't have any planets, you wouldn't have any life. And the exact values, so within a small range, these numbers are what's called fine-tuned. These numbers are specifically the values which are necessary, not for themselves. The laws of physics would be perfect, but for the universe to unfold and to realize the complex, amazing universe that we have with all its complexity, it's only a result of the fact that these numbers are tuned to this small
Right.
value, to close small range of values. And how do you explain that? The fact that the values are fixed, that those numbers, which will result in a future universe billions of years later, that indicates that the cause of these values is the purpose, is the goal, the objective of bringing about our amazing complex universe. And when you see a cause which acts with a purpose, that indicates intelligence. An intelligent actor is an actor which chooses, selects from a set of many possibilities for the sake of, picks one which will realize its goal or objective. And with the fact that these numbers are chosen, are the specific values which are necessary to yield our amazing universe, indicates that the cause of these fundamental components of our universe, these numbers, is intelligent. And that's like,
Right.
is they have a purpose. And that means if that's the case, our whole universe has a purpose. Our universe was set up by an intelligent cause, God, for the purpose of yielding where we are today. And that grounds this idea of looking for purpose in our lives. When we realize this isn't just this chaotic sea of particles, but we exist as part of a grand cosmic scheme planned by the God, by a creator, to get us to this point, that opens up the world into question, well, where do we fit into this purpose? And that's where, religion or spirituality could begin. Where do we fit into this grand cosmic divine plan?
Connecting the two. So you talked about these six numbers. Is that sort of what we're talking about here?
There's around 10 of them or so that are
10.
really fine-tuned. Yeah.
And do they exist in many fundamentals of these laws of physics?
Yeah, like for the basic building blocks of all matter is called fundamental particles. So like an electron,
Yeah.
right? Every atom is made up of electrons. So every electron in the universe is, how heavy is it? It's called the mass of the electron. And every single electron has the exact same weight. If you put it on a scale, how much would it weigh? And they all have this incredibly tiny little weight. Now, why is an electron that way? Not a little bit bigger, not a little smaller. So it's called like a fundamental constant. There is no, as far as physics knows, there's no deeper explanation of why is that weight, that has that mass. And all the fundamental particles have masses. And they also have charges which affect how they interact. And these are like the basic quantities called fundamental constants, which have no deeper explanation as far as physics can tell. And those are the numbers that everybody's trying to explain, why are they that way.
Okay.
And I do want to add one thing is like if a person hears this, just like us saying this in a couple of minutes, you might think, well, who says there is a cause? Maybe they just are that way. Or maybe there's some deeper qualitative law which makes them that way, or maybe it's just chance. And like there's a few other possibilities.
Yeah.
When you just hear it, you think like there's like you guys are jumping to conclusions, you saying it's God. I mean, it sounds like God of the gap. So in the podcast, which we don't have time right now, but we take this with all up and there's 10 episodes. Each
Yeah.
one in season one, each one is half an hour. We take up all those questions, we make it rigorous and we make it clear. And there's a reason why we're not saying that, and there's a reason why scientists are not saying that. If there was another good explanation, scientists wouldn't be believing in a multiverse. They don't. I don't think they want to believe in a
Right.
multiverse.
So you're
There's
saying
just no real.
are they looking into these numbers now and trying to figure out why these numbers are the way they are and why they are so fine-tuned and
Well,
specific?
Yes.
Well, in a
Yes.
sense, they do know why. That's what's amazing. The scientists say the reason why these numbers are the way they are is because human beings wouldn't exist if the numbers were different. That's what scientists are saying. But they say that's just an accident of observer bias. They say because really these numbers are different. In other universes, the numbers are different. But human beings can only exist in a universe which has the numbers
These particular
exactly
numbers.
right. Right. So the reason
Right.
why we see these numbers is because human beings couldn't exist if these numbers aren't correct. They're
Right.
just saying what you fail to realize is that there's an infinite number of unobservable universes that are going on that are complete garbage, and there's no human beings, and then there's no atoms, and there's no molecules. It's all just a garbage universe. That's called the multiverse theory. But like everybody agrees, there's no argument about fine tuning. The fact of the matter is that these numbers were different, human beings wouldn't exist, and that, in a certain sense, is the reason why the numbers are the way they are. It's just, is that a big illusion? I mean, it's true that that's the way we are, but it's based on observer bias. That's the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, no, there's only one universe as far as we know, and there's one set of laws, and the cause of those set of laws set them for the purpose of making a universe with galaxies and stars and life. That's the question.
So scientists, rather than saying that it's an intelligent creation, these numbers are now saying that these numbers are the way they are, and we can only see them because we exist because of these numbers. Yet, instead of saying there's an intelligent creation, we're just saying that there's multiple different numbers, and that's what creates multiverses.
Correct.
Yes, there are multiple different universes out there, infinitely many of them, always spawning, making more and more with all different numbers.
Right.
And by chance, one of these universes, or they're going to happen to have the numbers, the right numbers, just by chance alone, and we just happen to be on that universe because we couldn't exist on any of those other ones. So, in order to explain the unbelievable order, fine tuning of our one universe, they say, oh, it must be that there are infinitely many chaotic, crazy universes, and that's how you explain our existence of this one universe. But there's no evidence that all these other universes exist. It just, you can't ever see that these universes exist. They're outside of our universe. Everything which science has ever seen or measured is always says these numbers are fixed. Constants never ever change. They're called constants of nature. They never change. But that they posit to explain why these constants are fine-tuned, there must be other universes, infinitely many out there, and the constants aren't really constant. Here is one of 137.035999. But in some other universe it's 27, in another universe
Right.
it's a billion, in another universe it's pi, and they're all out there crazy. All these constants all varying throughout all these universes. We just happen to be in the one lucky one.
I mean, that's a theory, right? So it's saying that that's a possible theory for these numbers as they are, and that there's
Right.
multiple universes, parallel universes that exist that will have different numbers in them. But
Right.
couldn't
Yes.
you then just say, if we did ever discover that, then there's intelligent creation there as well?
Well, there would be nothing intelligent about those universes. They would just be the garbage, meaningless universes, total chaos and randomness. And if you looked at it, you'd say whoever made that universe was stupid. It would be a stupid cause that made them, a blind, unintelligent cause that made a bunch of garbage universes. The only reason you say that the cause of our universe is intelligent is if you think there's one universe and it selected the specific numbers and it left all the other ones. And for the purpose of making an amazing universe with incredible order, complexity, and structure, then you say the cause is intelligent. But if you have this cause of the multiverse, which just made an infinite amount of complete nonsense and chaotic, unintelligible things, so the cause of the multiverse is not intelligent. It's blind, unintelligent forces that make garbage universes everywhere. It would be filled with there's no intelligence in the
Couldn't there be
in all
other
those
I
other
like
intelligent
to.
universes?
well, there could be. There, in fact, this is part of what's wild about the multiverse is there's an infinite number of universes that have complexity and order and structure. And there's infinite because once there's an infinite number of universes, there's an infinite number of every type of universe. And every universe that exists, there's an infinite number of copies of it. So there's an infinite number of universes just like ours, but where you also you have a side job, Leigh, as a firefighter at night, and there's happens to be a number of universes where there's fire breathing dragons, and multiverse scientists believe in that stuff. They just think that it's not typical, it's unlikely, but they admit there are an infinite number of universes with unicorns and fire breathing
Kind
dragon.
of fun
I just want
idea.
to say
Yeah.
one thing. Well, it's kind of crazy. Is that multiverse does sound kind of wild, and it is, but like the smartest people in the world believe it. So there's more to the theory. It can't just be as crazy as it sounds at first. So there is depth to the theory, and there's a reason why they believe it. And you really have to go through it in a rigorous way, in a serious way, in order to see what's wrong with it. You can't just say, "Oh, that's crazy. God must exist." And that's what we do in season 2. We're in the middle of releasing it now. Is we
Yeah.
take it's gonna be about 15 episodes, around half an hour. Again, around half an hour each, maybe 40 minutes, and it's going to go through what does multiverse mean, what are the basic premises behind it, what are the scientific supports for it, and how you can really know that multiverse is a bad theory without just saying, "Oh, that's crazy," but actually
Right.
understanding with your mind in a rational way what's wrong with the theory itself. So you really have to do that. But there is an intuition that it's a bad theory. It's a crazy speculative philosophical theory, but you have to really do your homework and really show that that's the case without just rejecting something that brilliant people are saying.
Yeah, I like it. So with the theory that multiverses don't exist and the intelligence is here, and God created this intelligence, these numbers, how do you then put meaning behind that, or how do you put that into perspective for someone to believe that okay, there is God?
Right.
Well,
So, I
I
mean,
guess,
okay, go ahead, Ellie.
yeah, I guess what you're saying is that once you see that the science is pointing to the existence of an intelligent cause of the universe, then you realize that our lives are not just some chaos and some primordial soup or whatever, but we exist as the result of the plan of a divine plan that grounds it opens up the door. Again, you have to pursue how do you go further, but it at least the way you look at the universe is different. You don't just look at like you're some accident of just fundamental particles that happen to be here, but
Yeah.
you see that you're the result of a plan, and then it just grounds everything the way you look at the world. You see the wisdom in our universe, and you see that you're a part of it. And that itself gives a deeper meaning to your existence.
So would you say that there's a God or gods that created this order?
Right. Right. Well, that's again that we're planning on doing. It's going to take us another, year or two. But our
Yeah.
third season is going to show like what. So, what is the intelligent cause? Because to some degree, scientists say, okay, we don't really like multiverse that much either. But your theory of an intelligent cause doesn't really make sense either. Because who designed God? Who designed the fine tuner? And it just begs the question to say, well, how do you explain the design and fine tuning in the universe by saying, well, there's a God, but who designed God? So
Yeah. Where
that's
does
why
that
our
come from?
season three, yeah, where
Hmm.
does that come from? Who caused God? Who designed God? What does God even mean? They have all these questions. So our season three, we plan on developing it again in a logical, clear,
Right.
consistent way, spelling out exactly how do you formulate what idea of God emerges from this, and how to develop it in just a short way, just to say it, quickly here, just in a short manner, is we think that the only idea of God that's going to that emerges from this idea of fine tuning and design is going to be the idea of one God with a simple God with no parts. Because if you have an idea of a complex God, a big brain, or multiple gods working together to make fine tune the laws of nature and design them, so then you can have the same. It is begging the question: well, who designed them? Who put the brain together, or
Hmm.
who made all these gods work together? The only idea that you're going to be able to arrive at that you're going to be able to at some point say, well, who fine tuned that? Is going to be if you arrive at the idea of true monotheism, of a one God, simple God who is the foundation of all reality, who himself is not made up of parts, who's not made up of anything else. He doesn't have particles running around in him. And then when you say, well, who fine-tuned him? Who put him together? Well, he doesn't have parts. He doesn't have parts that have to be fine-tuned. He doesn't have parts that are put together. And you can understand with your mind why it doesn't make sense to say who fine-tuned God, because he doesn't have parts to put together. He's God. He's totally different and simple from as opposed to everything else he created. And that idea, you really have to develop that idea and again explain why that makes sense, why these are legitimate categories to use. And in our season three, we're going to do that by showing how the very way physics and science deals with fundamental existences, like an electron, like fundamental laws, you can transfer those categories and use them in metaphysics with regards to God, and it becomes very satisfactory how you can understand what you can know, what you can't know about God.
Then I look at God as pure intelligence in that sort of case. Because if he
In
has
terms of
no
exact,
parts and no definition, yet can create numbers that create this world that we have.
right. Yeah, exactly. His actions exhibit an infinite intelligence almost. So you could
Right.
say something like that. It's right. That's everything he does, everything he makes is filled with incredible intelligence. And
And
right,
then
he has
one
no
might,
parts, but
well, I would probably go into it and go, well, if that's the case, then who's to say he's created other universes and multiverses?
Right.
well,
We're
yeah,
saying is that he doesn't. There's no evidence that he has. Everything which we see indicates one, an unbelievable, amazing universe. And without any evidence, there's a bunch of garbage out there. Who says he did it? Everything we see is amazing and it
We can just
reflects
go on what we've
intelligence.
got. Right.
right.
So
No,
Yeah,
but
then,
exactly.
there's nothing against to say that this intelligent God didn't make other intelligible universes.
yeah.
Like he could have made thousands, millions, infinite amount of ordered worlds, fine-tuned, ordered, designed worlds. But if he's an intelligent actor, and if he wants to make other universes we don't know about, that's fine. We don't know that. It could be, it could not be. It's speculative, but there's nothing against that. But there's no reason to say, well, he's making an infinite number of garbage worlds. Why would you say he's acting unintelligently? There's no evidence for that. He
Hmm.
acts intelligently. If he made other universes, okay, he could have, he could not have. We don't know about them. We don't have access to them. But there's nothing wrong with saying that. What we object to is to say that God, made an infinite number of unintelligible, garbage, stupid worlds. Then you're essentially saying God is infinitely powerful but infinitely stupid. because he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just making an infinite amount of garbage, and by chance, you make an infinite amount of
You got
stuff
lucky with
randomly.
us.
One
Right.
that, yeah, but that's just there's no you don't it's poor reasoning to go from one amazing, complex, ordered universe and to infer that there's this infinite amount of complete garbage everywhere. It's just there's no reason to speculate about that.
With your theory on this idea of this intelligent creation that is our world that we have and see, is it hopeful that it gives people meaning in life then? If we can come down to this idea that there is this central intelligence that's created these numbers that create everything?
Right. That's really what I hope is ultimately the outcome of this is
Hmm.
that I hope it becomes more powerful, more prevalent and more well known that this exists, this argument exists from science, and that you can ground the idea of meaning and purpose in an objective reality. And it's not
Right.
something that's just purely subjective and created by people. And I think that has the ability to transform society and give people a sense of like, how do I fit into the divine plan? And that is where religion can take over and can try to give an answer for that and could try to explain that, or even need religion. It could just be philosophy and spirituality and other things, because you see that purpose and meaning is something objective and something real and true. And I really feel that that is one of the things that's really caused modern society to be in such, in a sense, it's like this depression that's fallen over modern society when you just removed purpose and made it this fake thing. And then, a rational scientist feels that if he has to be true to his beliefs, he has to believe that the universe is really absurd and it's all meaningless. And then he just has to try to find some sort of purpose in his own personal life that's not real. And that is not really a sustainable philosophy for people at large. And it's not easy and it doesn't lead to good things. So I really hope and believe that this is the
Yeah, nice.
foundational piece, our argument that allows people to really reintroduce purpose into their lives.
I like that. And I sort of feel that the spiritual way we used to live before science necessarily, we had more meaning because we believed that things worked for this particular reason of purpose and meaning, or gave us purpose
Right,
and meaning. But then science
right,
disproved a lot of those things and those theories.
Right. Right.
And so we
right,
had this
right.
big disconnect, and now we're saying, well, maybe we can come back to that.
Right. Yeah, we're
Exactly,
saying things
exactly.
have gone too far. You've seen what removing purpose completely from the universe leads to. It leads to this multiverse. And it's time for the pendulum to swing back and find some sort of middle ground where you don't explain everything by positing spirits and demons and intentionality everywhere. But on the other hand, you don't say that the universe is bereft of purpose and meaning entirely. Find some sort of middle ground where we can have science, but you can also have purpose, and then they're both real. And I think that's the right balance. And I hope that science comes back to that middle ground, as the decades roll on here.
Interesting work, guys. What, I mean, obviously, people can go and listen to your podcast, and I encourage you to. I'm certainly going to tune into the new series that you're just releasing, and I look forward to number 3.
For sure.
What can be people do to integrate these insights from physics and spirituality into their daily lives, do you think?
I would say that to integrate into your daily lives. I mean, there's really two steps. The first step is having the knowledge, the abstract knowledge as the basis, which I guess entails, listening to the podcast and then discussing it with your friends.
Yeah.
You have to think these things through. It's even just to hear somebody talk about it. It's not enough to just hear somebody else, but the second step really has to be where you discuss it with people and you try to work it through and see what are the consequences of this belief of integrating rationality and science together with spirituality, and whether a person's religious or not. But instead of having them being two separate spheres, is I think it has subtle long-term effects on a person when you integrate them and you don't live a dichotomized life. And I think that second step is beyond just listening and having abstract knowledge. I really think it requires talking through with other people
Mm,
and having those discussions, and that really will help you integrate them into your life in subtle ways. It's hard. Every person's going to have different ways, but I think it's those two steps.
yeah. Ellie?
Yeah, yeah. I was going to add that a person, I think, once you have this idea that the universe as we see it, this amazing universe, is the result of a divine plan, one could look at the wisdom in the world, and one could just appreciate nature and appreciate the world which God created, and contextualize your own existence in this bigger picture. And sometimes, like, a person has a feeling of their maybe smallness, and they try to fight against it by raising themselves up. But I think when a person can just sit back and appreciate, just like you appreciate the beautiful mountains, the beautiful scenery, you can appreciate the wisdom and see how we fit into this divine plan. And it gives a person through that appreciation, it just gives their life like the deeper sense that they're part of something larger than themselves. Yeah, it gives a person humility and an appreciation to try to understand more.
Yeah. Underlying purpose and meaning of life to give your own life purpose and meaning in that bigger picture of things.
Yes, right, exactly.
How do you guys keep an open mind to people that may disagree with your theories and beliefs?
I think you have to have a respect for how smart these atheist scientists are. And you just have to realize that when they're saying something, it's going to be based upon a real argument, and you have to be able to take it take it seriously and really think it through. Ultimately, you don't have to agree with somebody if you can see why they're wrong. But I think it's we like to have discussions. We go on other podcasts. Sometimes it's friendly. Leigh, you're really friendly here, but sometimes it's not as friendly. And people can challenge you, and they can ask questions, and you respect the fact that they're very intelligent people believing in a multiverse. Which in a certain sense, once you can see what's wrong with multiverse and why it doesn't work, that gives you more confidence in the whole argument. But on the other hand, you also have to be able to be willing to hear their arguments. Well, for example, when all our podcasts, our episodes, we always like to present the scientist's position first. We don't like to attack it right away. We want people to hear, what are the scientists saying? What are the reasons for saying that? What are their arguments and their justifications? And after you explain their position, you present it in a strong way, then we take up, well, what are the problems with that? What do we see wrong with it? So we just think it's important to know what the other side is and to honestly formulate their position in the strongest way. We know if we misrepresent their position and we don't formulate it clearly
Yeah.
and correctly the way they're doing it, you don't gain anything, because then somebody's going to go on YouTube and they're going to see a scientist saying something else, and then you're not going to convince them. The only way that what we're going to do is what we're going to do is being convincing is if what people hear us say, and when they go on YouTube and they read an article, they see it's the same thing. They see we're representing
Yeah,
their position
exactly.
clearly. So that's
Well,
something we very careful about.
hold you credible, right?
Yeah.
When you do it in that way, I had another question just slipped my mind. Um, Ellie, do you have anything further there to say?
Yeah, I would just say is like we often, because of that, we try to read up a lot and watch different videos on YouTube and try to see what the other side is saying. And Aaron and I have, discussed both sides of this argument for many years, discussed back forth, and questions, and really try to flesh out. Over the years, we've gotten a deeper appreciation of the complexities and the subtleties in the argument of multiverse scientists. And we saw,
Hmm.
at first, we thought of it a very simplistic way. And then as we go on in the years, we get more insight into their grounding, and it helps us understand it deeper and better. And we make our argument, more rigorous and more convincing. But, so we just have to keep an open mind to, look into other people's opinions and really give them the benefit of the doubt and see where they're coming from, and then try to analyze it.
Has there been anything by doing this podcast that has challenged to a point that has changed your belief, an existing belief?
Um, I think what I've realized is that proving religion, any kind of religion, is much more difficult than establishing a convincing argument for the existence of God. And that, like, I think we're Jews. We think we have good rational arguments for the Torah, for our religion. But on the other hand, it's to realize that it's worthwhile separating the ideas of knowing God exists separate from any religion. And I think that the arguments you can give that God
Right.
exists are very convincing, and We think they should be convincing to a lot of people. To really, it should be. But the arguments for Judaism, and any religion, it's more convincing once you understand the religion. You really have to know what it talks about. It's much harder to convince somebody who's doesn't know anything about it, any religion, that this particular religion is grounded, is true. But the idea of God, it's just you've been really able to see that idea is much more compelling. So that, I think, really, for me, it just showed me just to be able to say, what do I absolutely know? What do I know? And I won't say absolutely. You can't know
Yeah.
anything absolutely anymore. But like, what do you really know in the most convincing way, and just degrees of knowledge? That I think you could be convinced enough to live your life based upon that, but to have the subtle distinction and degrees of certainty. And I think that's what I've really, over the years, fleshing it out. How well do you know everything that you do know?
Yeah. I like that. What about yourself, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would used to think that scientists, like I knew that scientists maintain that science undermines God, and I never really believed them, that that was the case. But I didn't really think that we would get to a point where we could see how science points to God. And over the years, we really think this fine tuning, which is, the other people who talk about this, we've discovered fine tuning. We think we present it in a unique type of a way, but
Yeah.
really these discoveries over the past few decades are unbelievable in a way that it really allows us to see, you need to see firsthand
Mm.
through the science and through the philosophy that to get firmer conviction in the existence of God than I would have thought was possible through science. Science has, science, there's the impression that science and religion don't work together, and you almost have to do apologetics and to just, to answer up questions. But the fact that science would actually allow us to go on offense and to show that God exists
Mm.
and actually give compelling evidence for that, that was something which was shocking to me, and
Yeah, it's quite
it's
interesting, isn't
been
it? Mm.
enlightening and amazing, so I think it's exciting to see and to be able to see science pointing in the same direction as that which we were brought up with in our religious beliefs,
Well, I'm all
but
about giving meaning and purpose back to people. So that's it's been a great conversation. And thanks for your great work. Keep it up, guys. I
sure.
appreciate it. Physics2God.com, Physics to God podcast. You can find on any of the players. Anywhere else people can reach you guys, or any final words you want to put in?
Those are fine. You can send us an email, physics2god@gmail.com, once listen, if you have any questions, specific questions, and also on YouTube. Those are basically it, and that's the information's all there, and anybody who's interested.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Ellie and Aaron, appreciate you having on the podcast today.
Our pleasure, man.
pleasure.
Our
It's been a
pleasure.
pleasure. Nice
Thank
to
you
meet you,
for
Leigh.
thank you for having us.
You guys, you can check it out at thehiddenway.com. Live more fully, have more meaning, find more joy. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.